Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's Ban
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Woo! It's boom and all sorts of stuff. We're doing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 2, the Star-Spangled Man. That's what's happening. We are going to really pick it apart.
Yep.
But up top, what did you think in general?
What a great episode. This is
Glad we're on the same page.
we are. This is Marvel digging in deep into some very, very, very important subject matter. The way they're telling the story is respectful. It's like, I just really want to know what you're thinking. Like, I really like what they're doing with these characters. It's really, really complex. There's clear differences. I want to discuss a lot about this John Walker character.
Well, that's a good place to start. John Walker.
I want to talk about it all, so let's get into it.
So yeah, we start in the locker room with John Walker. It's kind of like he's unzipping the thing and he's looking at it. And I found it interesting that it was kind of like he goes to his, I guess, former locker in that room and takes someone else's name off of it to reveal his name. And it seems like he's really getting something out of that, which I found very interesting. As like, I mean, the first thing you see him is him looking at his new uniform in the locker room, but I feel like there is a point in showing that he ripped someone else's name off of it to reveal himself. I
agree. At that, like, when revisiting that scene, I love the fact that you brought that up, because revisiting it on initial watch, you're like, oh yeah, that's a bit of nostalgia. Like, if I were to go back to my high school, I'd probably go back to my locker room, but I wouldn't break in and carve my initials in or something like that, or really
which isn't what he does, but it is kind of like that person still needs that locker. Like, you can't just rip his name off.
Right. It's just like, no matter what this is, no matter whose place this is now, it's just like, this will always be my thing kind of deal. Like, that's his anchor or whatever to his identity.
And I think that's really important, because it's like the way the scene plays out, it's very sympathetic towards him if you just deal with the dialogue. And so there's two things. It's him saying that he's like, I just want to do a good job. I've been a captain before, but obviously this is different. And he has
it very humble as
I would imagine a black wife. Maybe she's Latinx, I don't know. But he certainly has a black sidekick. And I felt like a lot of this scene in the locker room in particular is him getting the support from the black people to tell him, you're doing the right thing. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, like, you're allowed to do this. We're giving you permission to go ahead and
we're okay with it, so everyone should be okay with it.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's really well done to not like, because I genuinely, based on what he says, I genuinely can't be like, oh, this guy's a bad guy. It seems like he wants to be a good guy.
Correct. He says all the right things,
but everything around it is like, I just hold on a second.
There's something off about it, right? You watch it and you're like, it doesn't sit well with you. I love the shot where, like, the way we feel about it is the way Bucky feels about it. We're watching it and he's watching it in his apartment. We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But of course, the idea of like, we're in disbelief. We're watching this, but then the interesting thing is, he does check off all those boxes, and he says all those things on paper, like that he's supposed to say. He's humble about it. He's done this.
He's not being an asshole at all.
He's not being,
and it doesn't look like a power play.
No,
but in the locker room. I'm only thinking about the locker room. It does seem like this is a big deal to him. Like, he wants to do a good job.
Correct. And he's just like, you know what? I've done all those things. And later on in the episode, he does, continue to prove himself. Like, he does feel in this scene, in this opening scene, the underdog. He understands.
They do a good job of showing him being the underdog in this locker room scene of like,
correct.
Like, he doesn't think like, oh, I deserve this. He thinks, I mean, again, I'm just saying the logic because I do feel like later on they're piecing together something else for him. But
Correct.
in this, it is like he does need the people he likes. So I don't know if they give his wife a name, but they do something really great where they show that they have like a special kiss they do, and like so you're already like in on his relationship with, if it's his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, like that they went to school together, like that like they love each other, and this is that's a special relationship. And if that person likes him, like he can't be all that bad, because she doesn't seem like a bad person either. And then Lamar Hoskins comes in, who, by the way, that guy's 50, and I feel like he looks like maybe 30 something.
He can play 30 to 35. Like I feel like he's just getting, like, he's at the point of his career, the peak point of his career. He does not play like a 50-year-old man.
No, but that guy is 50.
That's incredible. Wow.
Like that's
incredible.
That's crazy. But I think his name's Clay something. But that actor, like, I guess everyone kind of knew who he would be playing, but they don't. I mean, I guess, once you see his last name is Hoskins, it's on his thing, then people can be like, oh, that's Battlestar, who has been Bucky in the past in the comics and stuff.
Correct.
But it's obviously that's what they're setting up. Like, this is the new Captain America. This is the new Bucky. And that's kind of what I liked about this episode as well. In addition to all the racial stuff, was that like they really are like building out this universe. Like, it's like this, realistically, there was a run where these two people were the Captain America and Bucky, and so it's not, they're not just made for this show. Like, they are giving us comic book characters in this. And I felt like the TV ads, like whatever ads we saw, never really leaned into that they were going to do Battlestar. Like, you always see this setup for him at the football game, and but it was just Cap, and I was just like, wow, like, they're really going for it, and I really appreciated that, how much we didn't know going into this. That's an absolute. I love that point is the idea of, like, you find out he's Battlestar, and you're like, that is awesome. Like, yes.
Knowing
sorry, continue.
It's just wonderful writing where they're just layering all these different things.
I agree.
And
I really like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about here is, sorry, I want to get there later. But it is an agreement about what we said last week and what your criticism of this show is that it feels complete and all this kind of stuff, right? It's just, it adds so much on top of this. So
I think that this show does a really good job of, because there is a mystery at the center of this. Like, we'll get to mystery. But like, it doesn't feel like you have to be like, oh, it's this, it's that. Like, it's just like, no, like, this is a well-focused story, even with the week in between things, for us to be able to speculate.
What I like the most about this too is that in the mystery of it that you brought up, that we're really grounded in Falcon Winter Soldier. We know who those people are. We've been with them long enough. We can trust them. We can't trust anyone else. And that's what the mystery I love about it is. It's just like, who are these people? Everything's new about this. It's so wild.
So the next thing I wanted to bring up was that they do the marching band, and it always works for me because I wish that Canadian universities had this more, but like that marching band that's obviously black leaning, like in terms of the music that they play and stuff like that. I always love seeing that in movies. Like, I'm sure other people are just bored of it, but I'm just like, that's so cool that they have that tradition. And that they switched up the Man with the Plan song from the first Captain America movie, and that's what they're playing to introduce this new thing. And the only reason I bring it up, one, I like that style of music, but two, it's again being like, look at this black culture that's embracing the new Captain America. Like, we're doing it with this marching band, this black march. I know there's white people in it, but like, it's the black marching band, and the first person you see him, this is more for the audience, less for storytelling, but the first person you see get a selfie with him is a black woman. And like, yes, he does the high five with the band leader, but I'm talking about the people that are embracing him. Is the show is showing you, like, look at all these black people who are okay with white Captain America. And I think that does play into the race stuff they're doing in this show, of like how we will accept status quo and
Yep.
white supremacy in that sense of like,
Mhm.
well, yeah, like of course that's even though everyone knew Falcon had the shield, everyone knows what Falcon has done, what his history is. Everyone's like,
Mhm.
yeah, but it's the white guy. So that's cool. And like the fact that it's like, yeah, and everyone's okay with it. We're doing a big celebration. We're not doing the original version of Man with the Plan, which is more white leaning. We're doing
Mhm.
this version. So you can't say people don't like him from
Mhm.
different ethnicities. And I just think that's a really interesting thing they've layered into this
Yeah,
story as well.
truly wonderful. Like the way they're telling it, that and we haven't even gotten past that one scene where they're
No, I know.
they did. There's so many intricacies within that, the storytelling, of just that scene, who he chooses to selfie with first, like what they're showing. But you're right, the idea that Sam's goodbye to the shield, his donation to the shield, him doing what he thought was right, was received with the small conference room of people compared to that pageantry, that
Mhm.
display, that American culture at its finest, I guess.
Mhm.
Really doing a tour and then ending at that place. So it's wild to me that, like, you find out through this episode too that he's been doing this tour as like, this is the new cap, this is the new cap, and they're really doing the press conference side of things. And that I love what he says.
Yeah, he's good at it. Like
Yeah,
even
he's
in the way he's
really
answering,
good.
you're not like, oh, what an asshole. Like he's so conceited. He is like, oh, I don't know how a guy like me, but also being like, he can joke around too. Like, yeah, like eagles do swirl around and what like flags wave, and it seems like I didn't feel he was being a dick about it. Like I was like, oh, that's
No,
good. He's got a sense of humor
he
about it.
seems very genuine about it. But the thing that I really like at the end of the episode, reflecting back to this part of this episode,
Mhm.
I love the idea that even with this, they're just celebrating the military accomplishments,
Yes.
which goes on to show how, like, and the layering of this character is like, he genuinely thinks that I did this all for the military, for the military, and for the military, and all this
And the
kind of stuff,
government, and yeah, like
and for the government.
later
Yes,
on, he makes a point of being like, well, we're the government. Like,
we're the government. Yeah, and you're the government. Like, that's government tech, so we technically own
yeah, like
the
all stuff
information
Steve
that we can
wouldn't
gather from
do.
that. Exactly, right? The abuse of power, the like general, like all this kind of stuff. It's not. He's humble when it's performative, and everything
I
else he
think that's
does.
what we're going to learn is that
Yeah,
the humbleness is performative. It's
exactly.
just
It's
these
like
first two
he's
scenes do a good job of making it feel authentic because he does it
exactly.
not in front of cameras. And then you see that there is a shift when he's in front of cameras, but it still
Mhm.
feels like an extension of what he was doing off camera.
Yeah,
It was still like, yeah, I just want to do a good job.
this totally gives me like a little bit of Homelander vibes, with coupled with the boys, where they're putting on a
Yeah.
PR show and all that kind of stuff. Where
It's
there's
hard
like,
not to think about that now. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, right. Where they're thinking of like, okay, like, and I think that this show is really interested in doing the long reveal of that and giving you snippets of his personality and really selling you on, look, he is a good guy, but he's a government guy. So he'd be like like Thunderbolt Ross's like ideal guy.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
he's just not interested because Thunderbolt Ross wants superpowered people. But like, that's the ideal guy that Thunderbolt Ross would have wanted a thing for, if like
And I would
what's
say
his
this.
face wasn't there available in the first Hulk movie.
I would say this. He says he's not super powered, but we see him work that shield, and we haven't seen anyone not super powered work the shield that way.
But here's the point though, and this is where the trailers kind of ruin it, is like a lot of money shots in those trailers show Sam using
Yeah, but
the
that we
shield like
haven't
that.
seen. What I'm saying is we
We haven't
haven't
seen it yet
seen
in the
Sam
series.
do that yet, so we don't know what
No.
happens to Sam before
Fair.
he starts wielding the shield that way.
Fair. But it is one of those things where he is, I guess, you're right to point out, like, from the audience standpoint, what we know, omitting the trailer promotional materials and all that kind of stuff, but we're supposed to know from this story, is that he is the first person using the shield without superpowers, and that is impressive. Like when they
Well, I
show
know.
that clip of him like doing the
Mhm.
training,
And then
It
he
is
does
very
it
impressive.
later, which we'll get to. But in that clip, he's using it really well, and it's very
Right.
forceful. And I would say, I can't remember. This is on me. I
Mhm.
know Black Widow uses the shield at one point,
Mhm.
or does she just put it on the motorcycle?
I
She
think she
doesn't.
just puts it
She
on
doesn't
the.
do it with force, right? Like she just
Doesn't know. It's
sets it
more
up and
defensive,
passes it
like
off.
or whatever. I don't really
Because Winter
know.
Soldier
I
does, but
can't
we know
remember.
he is a super soldier.
Yes, so that
Um,
doesn't really count to me.
yeah,
It's just like,
that's,
oh,
and
yeah.
even in the show later, another super
Mhm.
soldier shows that he still has force with
Correct.
the, not with the shield, but so
Yeah.
it's, I'm just saying, like, this is what I mean by the mystery, is like there is some stuff that you can pick at and be like, I don't know, like we already know going into it we don't want him to be Captain America's, and I think that's done on purpose. So
Mhm.
it does lead you to like be like, but why is he using that shield so well?
Mhm.
No one else has been able to do that, or even attempted to.
Yeah, and when I watched that scene, like the first time I watched it, I'm like, of course they're using that footage. That I mean, like
Mhm.
if they CGI'd that, that'd be very convincing to the audience. They're parading that while they're talking about his military accomplishments and his training videos and him working out shirtless and all that kind of stuff. They're selling it. They're
Mhm.
selling the fact that he is qualified. This is the guy that's qualified to be the next Captain America. They're really giving you that resume, and it's but you're just always there's something off about it,
Yeah,
and it's but you want to like it so much because he says all the right things. He really does.
exactly. And so the next scene is Bucky seeing it, and you already you hit the nail on the head. Like he's obviously like, what the fuck, this is bullshit.
Yep.
So then the next thing we would have seen would be Sam, like basically about to go meet,
Mhm.
or not meet the Flag Smashers, but like stop them,
Mhm.
with Torres, who seems to just be back to normal. And this show doesn't really give me any indication of whether or not I should trust him, or it's just kind of like, yeah, it just seems like he's one of the guys. um but
Yeah.
he sees the poster, and the big thing I wanted to say, and I wish I said it last episode, was that Sam definitely, he's not saying it out loud, but he feels the imposter syndrome of like,
Oh
how
yeah.
could I do it? Which again, I feel like plays into white supremacy of like, well, yeah, you can't be Captain America. Like that would be something he would just grow up
Right.
with. I mean, he didn't grow up thinking about being Captain America. He met Captain America at a very specific time in his life.
Mhm.
But like it would still be ingrained in him that like everything we've talked about so far, like the white guy that did this, and this, that's who people will embrace. And I
Mhm.
get, and that's, I kind of touched on it, but it was like he would have imposter syndrome if you're saying take on this white person's mantle,
Mhm.
where, and where I thought the show was going to go, but I guess it's not, and that's perfectly fine, was that he's like, but I can still be my own icon
Yeah.
as Falcon.
Yeah.
That's not where they're going. That's fine. I don't care about the show doing what
Well,
exactly what
we
I
still
wanted to
don't
do.
know if that's what they're going to touch on later,
But I
but
think what they are dealing with is imposter syndrome, because he would have
generalized.
obviously felt like, yeah, I should take up the mantle, but he's like, but then people wouldn't take me seriously. And this show is showing, like this episode in particular, of like
Mhm.
everyone is embracing this new Captain America, even though he
Mhm.
hasn't done like a tenth of what
Oh, he
Sam
has
has
proven
done.
himself. Or absolutely. Like and I
Like, yeah,
love
he's
that
done a
that
bunch of combat stuff, but Sam did all of that before he even became Falcon. And then
yeah.
you have to add on what he's done as Falcon.
Mhm. And then yeah, as Falcon, you're like, okay, I didn't have to tell you everything. You know what I did already.
Mhm.
Like it's just like you're trying to prove yourself to me right now. Technically, is the way that scene is played out or should play out, and then it just it's just that final line.
Yeah,
Um,
well, we'll get to
I
that
think I
scene, but
jumped
yeah,
there for sure. I think I
yeah.
jumped there. Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice that Bucky's first thing when they meet up for the first time is just like, shouldn't have given away the shield, motherfucker. And he's
I
like, well,
know.
that was
I
a
love
great
it.
reunion.
He's like, well, it didn't even say hi or nothing like that, and you're like, this is the first time you're seeing them, and they're getting together in this series because we haven't seen them together in the episode one yet, and the first thing, like this is it. This is
and
important for me.
and
This is
what I
all.
wrote down
Yeah.
was, it's the first time in this episode of two times where Bucky is forced to check his privilege with a black
Yes.
man, because he goes, you have no
Yeah.
right to do that. And he's like, look, no, what you're not going to do is tell me what my rights are.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to overreach. And he said overreaching life in terms of you're 106 years old, but it
Correct.
is like, hey, you settle down with like you telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing
Correct.
with something like this.
Yeah. It was like, yeah,
And
that was.
and
I
what I
love
mean by that is like the line is said, but you also see Bucky internalize that. He doesn't say anything back. But
Mhm.
I see him processing that and accepting it. Like I
Yeah.
felt like that was a good. I basically anytime these two are talking or at each other's throats, I think it's legitimately very exciting. Like I feel like they really work well together.
I
As a
agree.
they bounce off of each other so well.
They're really good at that. Like it's just everything they do, because you're right, those small subtle things that Sebastian Stan does with his face when his privilege was checked that first time, I was like, okay,
Because
he
he's like, okay, you're right. Like he doesn't say it. You just see that in his face of like, fair.
yeah, he's just like, yep, accepts it. You're right. I'm not going to do that. Let's carry on. And he doesn't make it about anything else. He's just like, you're right. That's it. The best thing I've seen. And I'm like, the subtleties in that scene are like, I appreciated that so much. Like watching that, I'm like, he didn't argue. He didn't do anything. He just like, you know what? You raised a very valid point. Privilege checked. I'm going to keep my mouth shut about that topic and realize that
because
I need to make my point a different way or something like that.
which
And
we will
it's
get to. Like
fantastic.
he makes his point very well later,
Oh
but
my God. Yeah.
I
I can't wait till
think
we talk about
I
that.
think for that scene is like, yeah, like that was just, and we know why he wouldn't lead with the truth. Like,
Correct.
obviously, you're not going to lead with the truth that that's the first time
Yeah.
you guys are seeing each other in however long.
Yeah,
But like,
especially if you're going to do childish things like staring contest. I'm not going to expose all my feelings to you right off the bat as the first thing that I do if I really despise you. It's just like the last thing that we did was like it was a good goodbye. It was a respectful goodbye at the end game thing. It's like respect that, and now they're like picking at each other again, and I love that. It's just like I thought we were gonna be cool with, but no.
And I know that it's already, people probably already saw this. I didn't watch any of the clips before the show came out, but that Gandalf thing where he's like, how do you know about Gandalf? I just really like Anthony Mackie's delivery of, how do you know about Gandalf? He's like, I read it when it first came out, like
in 1939.
Yeah, it's like 1937. I read it when it first came out.
Yeah, that was the best. That was like, it's that those kind of scenes are like hilarious to me, because I'm like, this plays out so well.
So yeah, they're flying, and I did like that Bucky was like, you can't call me Buck. And I was like, interesting. He's like, why? That's what Steve calls you. Yeah, but I've known Steve longer, so that's not for you.
Yep.
And I was like, interesting. So there is a thing there. And then that leads you to the warehouse where they find the Flag Smashers. And I was just so excited by their chemistry throughout this whole thing of like, like when he shows up and he's like, he wants to hurt Red Wing. He's like, don't hurt him. And then like he's like, oh, you'll be fine. You when you were in Wakanda, you were the White Panther. He's like, actually White Wolf. And just again, it's not a line of dialogue. He does go, but it is like everything in that of like, sorry, wait, you even get to be cool with the black superheroes? Like, what the hell? They actually took you in, which I found very funny. But then I feel like after that, that's when he needles him, where Bucky is about to be like, yeah, let's take them out. He's like, whoa, we're not assassins. And it's like, that's a really shitty thing to say to someone who's really trying to remove themselves from their assassin days.
Yeah, but it's like, you know what really did bother me about that scene is that he's doing a military operation, or some sort of operation with the government still. If Bucky,
I don't know, they are. He said we're free agents.
See, well, that's the interesting thing. I wanted to get your thought on this. Like, who is he working for now? Shield is not there. Sword is not there. Like, who is Bucky doing? Like, I'm sorry, not Bucky.
Sam.
Who is Sam working for? Because he is government, right? Like the whole like Falcon project thing.
I think he can do things if he has government contracts. I don't know if that specifically was a government contract.
I see. So do you think? So my question is like, because obviously we have to talk about legalities and like of this society and all that kind of stuff when we layer in the race and all that kind of stuff too, especially when there is policy discussion later on with the Flag Smashers. So the idea of, would he be like an independent like kind of person, because he's breaking a lot of international law just by like whoop, 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 flying all over the place, doing all of those kind of things. Like Sokovia Awards would like accords should still stand, right? I mean, like, it's a bit of a
I
weird
don't know.
question mark. Or do you think it's just because like, oh, we unblipped and we're still trying to figure that out, where there's like, there's a
Yeah,
lot
they
more
have
that
dialogue about stuff isn't figured out yet.
boom, okay, got it, figure it out, got it. I like that. That allows that, because to me that scene was just like, how did Bucky get into a military compound, is now joining in on a military mission without any prep?
Well, he
or
was
whatever.
pardoned. That we already know, but
He was
from
pardoned,
the end,
but that doesn't
he's
allow him to do
pardoned
whatever
as
he
long
wants.
as he does his therapy sessions.
Correct.
And so he missed one, but like he hadn't up until that point, so he can do whatever he wants other than that.
Right, but even at that point, what I'm saying is Bucky would have been technically recognized as a civilian, right? He wouldn't have been a government agent or something like that anymore. It would have been.
Yeah, they never were though. Falcon and
Falcon
Winter
was.
Soldier were never. No, because they both didn't sign the Sokovia Accords.
They didn't. No, they didn't sign the Sokovia Accords.
So they were always operating. And so once you get that pardon, I guess they're saying, all right, like you could do what you want then. Like, I don't.
Yeah, but
I mean,
does that mean you can go back into the? So the point I'm trying to make is like, it seems like a military operation or something like that. Bucky, it's because even Falcon is working together with the Lopez guy, right? The guy we don't trust.
Torres. Yeah.
Torres. God, I'm terrible with names. The Torres guy. So there's military there. So to me, I'm like, Bucky going on base without clearance, going on the mission, and then doing this is really weird to me, right? That felt weird to me.
I guess. I mean, for me, it's unimportant. I know. I don't think. I mean,
I get what you're saying.
It's just kind of like they are acknowledged as superheroes. So like, right. It's not a military operation in that sense. Mm-hmm. Like they aren't part of any kind of armed forces. The government can say, sure, you can go do that. Mm-hmm. Which I think was part of the Sokovia Accords, but I think the idea is you save the world, we can kind of loosen what the Sokovia Accords are at this point.
Mm. So yeah, a lot of okay.
So I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is it's hard for me to try and dig and be like, see, that doesn't make sense, because it's like they're already acknowledging the world is in flux right now.
Right. So that's what I want. Like, I want to bring that up to be like, did that bug you as much as it bugged me?
No.
But the world being in flux post blip, people coming back, like half the world's population coming back at one time, like insane. Your administrative liberties, let's give it that one whatever that is. But okay, fair enough.
Sorry. Yeah,
so yeah, they're on the mission now.
They chase after them. Mm-hmm. Once they leave, they realize they've stolen something. Is it medication, vaccines? I think they straight up say vaccines.
They say vaccines.
I can see why they were like, we have to edit this show, because it does seem like it was going to be very dangerously close to like just being like, I was even worried in the first episode when Yuri, the old man he was sitting with, started looking like he was getting sick. I'm glad it was just he was remembering his son, but I was like, oh no, are they going to be like show the first person who gets sick from whatever virus this is the Asian person? I don't like that. And yeah. Like, oh, thank goodness we stayed away from that.
Yep.
But yeah, but this, I think, I don't even know if these vaccines, I think they wrote it so the vaccines don't play as important a part anymore. I get the sense they tried to like avoid all of the and obviously they weren't trying to be insensitive when they wrote it, but I'm sure they're like, this could come off as insensitive given the pandemic. So I think they tried to steer away from that, because basically they're stealing from the power broker, which when I wrote it down, I just thought, oh, like that's just a name. Like, who was it in Ant-Man 2? Like the benefactor or whatever? I can't remember what they called it.
That, yeah.
Yeah, but it is a comic book character. There's two people who have been in, and one of them worked with a character from the whatever season of Jessica Jones where you find out who gave her mother and her powers.
Oh yeah.
So that was that. So I'm assuming it's not going to be that one. Carl something, but yeah, it's the power broker. So we'll see who that is. Maybe we could talk about that at the end of this, but yeah, they've stolen from the power broker, so they are trying to do what we know from the first episode, which is bring it back to the times where it was one flag, one people, or whatever.
Yes.
But they're also,
and I want to point out that one scene where they're in that auto body shop, they're being housed by this like this like guy and his family and all that kind of stuff. I think it was really, really, really interesting, that whole scene, because it was like the way they're talking about it was like it was super empathetic towards their cause, right? You're like the idea of like people that weren't here for the past 5 years get to suddenly show up and tell us what to start to do, and then like in the way everyone was working without half the world's population was fundamentally together without those boundaries and those walls and all those borders, and you're starting to think about what they're actually standing for, and you're like, oh my god, there's a lot of empathy toward their cause. But like I'm just like, it's a complex like
indeed,
group that they've written. I'm like, this is fantastic. So
um
to me, the power broker, like that bringing up the power broker stuff, the vaccine stuff, it's weird because in this they're like, oh yeah, it's vaccines to bring to like the underserved in Europe, but the power broker's involved, and I'm like, that's a very interesting thing. Like, why is a power broker concerned about vaccines going to different parts of the world and all that kind of stuff? To me, I'm like, was the vaccine code for more experimental?
that's
like,
what I'm assuming.
yeah,
is because that's how the power broker works. Is
yeah,
it's like, yeah, here you go, you can get your powers, but you need to keep taking it. Like, so it isn't even like a vaccine. It's like, no, you're stuck having to come to me for this.
Compound V.
Like Compound V, and
Much
I
like
think
Compound
yes,
V,
in the
like before.
comics, he is the one who gives Battlestar and John Walker their powers,
which is something that is I heavily going to lean into. I feel like it's going to happen.
But yeah, this is the introduction of Carly Morgan, though, which is I guess gender swapped from the comics, because it's Carl Morgan though in the but they were probably like, there's too many Carls. So yeah, Carly, the woman who played in Fistness, and this is like her introduction. I feel like, yeah, I feel like this is her introduction, because you didn't really focus on her last episode because they wanted you to think it was the big guy who was leading things, but it seems like she's the leader, and she's great. Like, and even Bucky kind of is like, well, I found the hostage, and it's like, no, you did it. Yeah, and she kicks his ass, and it's great.
A lot of gender assumptions,
and again, just
assumptions
exactly gender assumptions, everything. But the great thing was just like, again, we've seen this shot so many times in all the trailers, but they never hinted at the fact that this was also going to be the introduction of Captain America and Battlestar.
Yeah,
like when they showed up, I was like, this is a great scene. Like I thought I was going to just be like, oh, whatever, we've seen this already, but I was like, no, this is amazing. This is even when like Bucky catches the shield for a bit and then John just takes it right back from him anyway, and I was like, I wanted more of that, but I get that that's a little too on the nose with like people grabbing at the shield and stuff. But like,
yeah, they're probably going to do more of that throughout the season.
Yeah, but I just thought this is an amazing scene. It is action, but it's also just like it's like, well, yeah, it's the two people that you think should get the job done, Falcon and Bucky, being shown up by the new Captain America and and Bucky. Bucky. I mean Battlestar, but yeah.
And the thing that's so so this scene has so many wow factors, because the only time you see John Walker use the shield was in target practice and all that kind of stuff. You see him use it in combat, and you're like, okay, but then he uses the gun too readily. You're just like, oh.
I've seen people say that, but I think it's because we just rewatched Avengers. I'm like, yeah, like Steve used guns a lot.
He did. However,
like maybe he didn't in Infinity War and Endgame, but like up until that point, he was using guns.
So here's my thing. Yes, but only I find in Captain America, or when he's in a position where he has nothing else to defend him with. So here's what I mentally went through a lot of scenes, and probably there's confirmation bias here. So think about that. I will think about that for a second while I'm listing these off. But like in Captain America, the First Avenger, yeah, he breaks into the compound. You see him with the shield. He's shooting a gun. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
With the rest of
He does it in Winter Soldier.
he does it in Winter Soldier again, and then in the First Avengers where he's shooting that like assault rifle type.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know guns that well, so he's shooting that automatic gun. Pew pew pew.
Yeah, he uses guns.
Yeah, he uses guns. You're right, but the thing is, his approach to using a gun is, in my opinion, in a very dire situation. It's to me a last.
Well, this one was to save his sidekick. Like he wasn't using it until his sidekick was being choked out, and he said, "I need help," and then he took out his gun and shot the person.
Okay, fair enough.
And it was easy. Like it wasn't like, oh, I gotta. It was like he took his time, he took the shot, and his sidekick was saved.
Okay, fair enough. I just thought it was just jarring to me seeing.
I mean, it looks weird, but he looks weird. I think anything he does is weird. I just think, yeah, like I've seen a bunch of people be like, "Oh, I can't believe he used a gun." I'm like, to save his friend, and it's more than that. Anytime Captain America does it, it's just mowing down like nobodies. And in this, the person, they even take time to be like, "Hey, are you okay?" And the person's like, "Yeah, I'm good." He didn't kill anyone. He just stopped them from choking out his friend.
You know what? Very, very good point. Well said.
He didn't know he wouldn't kill them. Also, this goes into
True.
my theory that he is a super soldier and he knows there's super soldiers and everything. But like, yeah, I personally didn't feel like, oh, I can't believe he used a gun. I'm like, yeah, I'm used to watching Captain America use a gun.
I didn't. To be fair, I didn't go like. It was just one of those things where I'm like, I've seen enough reaction videos there to be like, other people are talking about it. We need to talk about this because it did sit weird with me.
I just thought like that was a perfect time to use it.
Yeah, I didn't think of it like that. I just thought like, I'm not used to seeing Cap, like someone with the Cap shield, just going to a gun that quickly in that. Because it's been removed for so long since so many movies, right? That's really it's a jarring image. But you're right, he does it as a last minute thing to save his friend. And the thing I like about that, going back to that fight scene where John Walker, you're like, the way he saves him too is just like he uses the shield to like cushion the fall or whatever you want to say. However that worked, but
like they look like they're having fun too because he like falls and he goes like. Like he's got this smile and a thumbs up, and he kind of smiles before he gets up to fight the Flag Smashers.
Yeah, and then he gets his butt kicked.
Yeah, I mean, all of it. I was just like all of it was just like, again, like I have a hard time being like, oh, these are the bad guys. Other than I'm like, they probably are working together. I feel like we're gonna find out they're working together somehow.
You know what though? I feel like they're working together, but not knowingly. I feel like they're working together because the power broker is manipulating things behind the scenes, or like, and this is a lot less likely, but going to the Zemo thing is like,
that he manipulates things,
pulling, but it's a lot less likely because you would have to think, how would he get information to be able to control things from the compound? So like the idea he's coming back and then being able to manipulate things would be interesting, but to say that he's the power broker right now is far-fetched. I
don't think he's the power broker.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I heard this. I'm pretty sure I've watched New Rockstars people like the Weekly Planet. And I can't remember which one of them said it. Probably New Rockstars, that they probably there probably is a like super soldier program still going, and even if they weren't in the same batch, they would, one of them knows of the other one. Like if the Flag Smashers know about them, or like that they are, like you said, in league together. Maybe they're not fighting for the exact same thing, but they are connected.
You're right. I think there's some manipulation going on. There's behind the scenes string pulling. There's a Wizard of Oz behind the scenes pulling the strings.
All right. Speaking of wizards, the next scene is Sam and Bucky walking down the street. I love it. And then new Cap and Battlestar come up, and they have the big three thing.
And they hit the
like, there's no such thing as wizards. He's like, fine then, aliens and androids. Like, seem like super soldiers.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, well now we know what it is. Let's work together. Yeah. Bucky's like, no, this is not happening.
Yeah.
And then we get to what you're talking about, where they get into the truck together and they both individually get pissed off. So the first thing is, and we don't know why it pisses him off, but when I really liked when Lamar Hoskins, like, when he's like, "Who are you again?" He's like, "Lamar Hoskins." He's like, "I see a guy swing out of a helicopter in combat gear. I'm gonna need a lot more than just Lamar Hoskins." He's like,
Lamar
"I'm
Hoskins.
He's like, "I'm Battlestar," and that's what gets Bucky. He's like, "Battlestar? All right, I'm out of here. This is bullshit." And I'm like, interesting that would. I don't even know what significance that has to him, but like that obviously means something to Bucky, and he's like, "I'm out."
I don't know. It means something. It jars him the wrong way. I feel like, you know what it feels like? It's just the idea. Like I'm trying to get behind Bucky's shoes and all this kind of stuff, and why he would get upset about that, because it's a very, very like strong reaction. Like, I'm Battlestar. Nope, peace. We're out of here. The idea of, I think,
not even he was like, "No, I'm out of here," and he left. Sam was still willing to stick with it.
Right. Not even we. Yeah, very much him. I think the idea of Bucky responding that strongly is in recognition of like the trauma that he's gone through, and is like, hey, I have a name too, or had a name, the Winter Soldier. Now it's the White Wolf, whatever you want to call me. The point is that don't glorify this because I went through trauma and hell and all this kind of stuff, and you're being like, I'm Battlestar, this is cool. Like it's, I mean,
like, I don't know, because he's around a bunch of people that have names, so
well,
like I can't imagine him being like, "What, you have a name?"
Like that, though. But they don't actively use it like that, though, because like in Avengers,
he's been around Iron Man, he's been around Ant-Man.
Yeah, but do they go Tony, Steve?
But they know their names are Iron Man and Ant-Man, like the Ed Cap. Like I think it's specific to Battlestar. I don't think it's just the fact that he had a name.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, like he's working with someone who calls themselves Falcon. They can call each other by first name. Unlike Justice League, though, the world knows them as their superhero names, and they have used their superhero name. Like Tony's last thing isn't, and I am Tony Stark. It's I'm Iron Man. I'm not saying Bucky is there for that or sees it. I'm saying they do use their names. That's fair.
That's fair. That's fair. I just felt like it was just one of the Bucky was just done with the whole situation. He was never on board.
No, you didn't. Obviously. But that I feel like we already knew he was gonna have a name. Like it would be weird for you to like, wait, you have a code name? Like I don't think it's that. I feel like it is specific to the name.
Right. I also like that scene too, where Bucky's doing stuff where it's like, Steve did this. Did you do this? And he's like, yeah, no, he's like, have you ever jumped on a grenade? He's like, yes, 4 times. It's this thing I do with my helmet. Yeah, it's a complicated thing. It's a reinforced helmet. Like, never mind. But all this, like, that was wonderful.
Yeah, I loved it.
I was like, he shuts him up there. He's like, huh. He makes you think that he's like, maybe he does have chops to be.
But what I would say is, Steve didn't do it because he knew he had a reinforced helmet. Steve did it because he just was going to jump on the grenade to save everybody.
Yeah, he just
as I said, I think they sprinkle things out throughout this episode to make you be like, yeah, but like, and again, we weren't going to look for Sam to be exactly like Steve, but we also just know Sam's character, so we know he would be a good Captain America. Whereas saying something like, I jumped on a grenade 4 times, and then completely undercutting it by being like, because I know I can contain it, then it's like, it's less of a sacrifice, or it isn't a sacrifice.
It's not a sacrifice at all. When it's a strategy, it's a play, it's like, whatever you want to call it, it is heroic by all means. But going in fully equipped, having a strategy to deal with something routinely like that does downplay the idea that Steve Rogers did it in a training exercise.
Without any powers. Without any
powers. It's a totally different thing. Because he's like, the way John Walker is talking about it is like, I've done it. Check mark from here's how many missions I've done. But Steve Rogers did it as a human.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, right? And that's what we get to know about this and this whole series, is that Steve Rogers chose Sam because he's a good man. He says that. And that's why Steve Rogers was chosen for the super serum experiment, because he was a good man.
Yeah.
And that is the quality that you cannot think, because that's the point. Captain America was a good man, but U.S. agent is a good soldier, and that's the
To be
difference.
fair, he's not U.S. agent.
Well, not
That's
yet.
fine.
Yeah, not U.S. I
He
just
is
refuse
Captain
to call him
America.
Cap. I just refuse to call him that because I'm
Yeah.
like, not my Cap. Not my
But yeah,
Cap.
so what he says to Sam that gets Sam off board is that he's like, yeah, like it would be good if you'd be my wingman. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that is, up until this point you think he'd be like, oh well, I just have reverence for you because you guys save the world and you're the Avengers. And he's like, yeah, you're an Avenger, why don't you be my sidekick? And it's, I know this is just in superhero world, but like you see that someone like my dad, who is almost always going to be overqualified for whatever job he has right now, because a white person will be like, hey, here's something you can do, like you're probably like overqualified for it, but like, hey, see, you can be my little sidekick, it's great.
It's like, I can trust you to do this job well,
this lesser thing, because
yes,
you have like you're way better than this, but here, take these crumbs.
Yeah, and it's not only that too, but it's like these crumbs in service of me.
Yes,
that's the part, and that's, there's so much nuance in that writing.
And that's when you start looking at Hoskins differently, not for his decision to work with him, but it's
right.
What is the respect going both ways there?
Yeah, like what's your game here? It's like, yeah, the people.
No, I don't mean Hoskins has a game. I'm saying Hoskins is in this.
No,
but like, is John respecting Hoskins, Lamar, the same way Lamar, I assume, respects John?
Yeah, it's a different kind of thing.
Or why Lamar wasn't picked to take the shield. Like, it's very clearly like slotted in, like John gets the shield.
Yeah,
Hoskins gets to be the sidekick.
Yeah, and it's even like, and I was pointing this out too, is the idea that Hoskins doesn't get celebrated, but he's in the mission.
Yeah, but he didn't get to run up with him.
He's throwing his life on the line as much as
he doesn't have a shield. I mean, as much as we know,
he didn't
again, that's why I think they probably do have the serum already. But
yeah, he didn't have any.
As well as we know, he doesn't have any superpowers and he doesn't have any protection.
And that's the difference, right? This guy's like, he's playing a role, he's content doing that, and it's so disheartening to see, because you're just like, oh, and it's almost like Sam. You can almost see it in Sam too, where it's like almost like, man, I wish I could tell you what you're doing. You know what I mean? There's that.
But I think someone made a good point. Again, I don't remember who said it. I don't ever think. I mean, Sam did say it, but. And I never was happy when he's like, hey, don't look at me, I just do what he does, but slower. But I feel like it never came from the idea of like, I'm his little buddy. I think it was just like, yeah, we're a team, like this is a partnership, as opposed to like, I'm here to support him.
That's the point, right?
And I do think that this show is trying to expose Sam to those realities. I do think that even if it's something subconscious, I think it is trying to, like, as you said, like a humbling experience if you go and you're like, yeah, I'm the Falcon, and then it's like, oh, but that doesn't get you anywhere.
That doesn't get you anywhere.
People will still hold on to racist beliefs that like, well, we can't trust you to pay us back.
Right.
And we'll see later on in the episode. But I do think that a lot of this is him realizing that being Avenger does not stop him from dealing with racism in every form.
It's just, my God, it's what's it in 444? Jay-Z sings about it or raps about it. It's the idea of like, you could be this, but you're still black, kind of deal. And
that's the story of OJ.
The story of OJ. Yeah, I can't remember the song, but like, it's like Sam's naivety to a certain degree is being removed severely, and it's like,
and really, even if it's not naivety and it's just this what is it, like just some way to protect himself, self-preservation mechanism, it's being stripped away from him.
Absolutely. He's just being exposed to totally different things, or at least we're seeing it, or it's and it's difficult, he's very self-aware, and then sometimes he's just like, wait, what? That seems weird.
I mean, you already talked about the Flag Smasher hideout, so I don't really have anything to add, so we can just move on to Bucky suggesting that they just steal the shield back. And I thought this was interesting because you get an update on Sharon Carter, which I guess you could have assumed, but he was kind of just like, you can't just go up and kill. Do you remember what happened last time? Like,
Privilege
you had to
check
run away for 2 years.
twice.
Sharon became enemy of the state. Obviously, Bucky got to hide out in Wakanda, but still, they had to hide. They weren't able. It's Sam being like, "Look, I don't want to live that life," and
Yeah.
I think that ties into what we were just saying too. Is that like, sure, yes, I'm black and whatever, and I have limitations. I just don't want those limitations.
Right.
I want to burst through those.
Yeah, and I like the idea that dialogue where he goes through, where he's like, "Listen, man, we just came back from fighting these space villains and all that kind of stuff. Let's have some downtime." You know, he basically says something like, "We just did this. Let's like have some chilled out stuff for a little bit or whatever."
Or at least not have to like fight for our life again. I
Or
don't know if he wants to
the
chill out so much as he just doesn't appreciate having to fight for everything.
and go on the run.
Yes.
And you know, all that kind of stuff. Like that is a big privilege check there too. It's just like, hey, how did it work out for you last time? You got to recover in Wakanda.
I don't even think that's what he meant. I think he meant like we both weren't able to live our life at that point.
Well, right. And here's the point he's making. Sam was like, hey, I have a life here. Sorry that you don't right now, but you're also not trying to connect with other people too. Like with his therapist is so with Bucky, he's being like the mission, because that's the only thing he knows, right? And then Sam, and like the therapist in episode 1 even says, you need friends. Sam being here is like, hey, guess what? That's not my life. I want to balance out too. I want a work-life balance, so to speak. You know, I want healthy kind of considerations in my life, and it's perfectly fair for him to say that. And it's just like, it's that scene was wonderful. How did that work out for you last time? You can't just steal the shield. It's not like people will just accept me as the next Cap. I love the fact that he says that. It's wonderful.
It's playing into his imposter syndrome. It's playing into the very real thing of people already accepted this guy as Captain America.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should move on to the introduction of Isaiah, and I do think confirmed Elijah Bradley. So that is.
I cannot wait to talk about it.
I always thought he was the first Captain America, but this is saying he was the second Captain America.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It makes sense for the timing.
It makes sense because it's just like, okay, yeah, Cap was on ice and they needed someone.
So they needed someone else.
Yeah. And the way they were talking about it was just like, because the thing is, the thing that I'm liking a lot more is the idea that like through a lot of these character stories, this universe is growing in ways that you're like, okay, through the Ant-Man thing, you find out about Hope and Janet, sorry, not Hope, the original Ant-Man and Janet and like Hank. What they did, and Hank during wars and stuff like that. So they had influence on that. And now you're layering in Isaiah Bradley as Captain America. Yeah, as Captain America, but a Captain America that was covert and used and manipulated by the government, and nobody ever knew about it.
And then they arrested him after.
Yeah,
so and then they could for 30 years, so they could experiment and keep. Like, who's to say that wasn't Isaiah's blood they were using to work on the stuff for Hulk or even Abomination?
Exactly.
And he's like, yeah, even Hydra did it, which I guess he doesn't know they were the same thing, basically. So
well, yeah, that's true. He didn't know that they were the same thing. But at the same time, it wouldn't matter to him.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't matter to him. It's just
it doesn't matter.
It's two sets of people coming in. But yeah, it's fucked that. I mean, it's very real. I'm glad they did that. Like, as we talked about, like the Tuskegee Airmen and like how Tuskegee experiments and how they just valued Black lives so little. And I'm not saying they value them that much more today, but like they that they were just like, because the idea is you saw what it took to get Steve where he was. They were just lucky it worked that time, because it didn't work with Hulk. It didn't. I mean, it kind of worked with Abomination, but not really. And it's like, so how many people got fucked up over this So just to have this Isaiah Washington, I keep saying Isaiah Washington, Isaiah Bradley work out, and it's good that they had his grandson there who becomes Patriot, and it's like, okay, that's another young Avenger they've introduced.
So
they could use Torres as well, who becomes Falcon as a young Avenger, like, and that's kind of what my frustration with WandaVision was, or the discourse was. Everyone's thinking like, how are they bringing in like Fantastic Four? How are they bringing it? It's like they're showing you like two young Avengers in your face, and
I knew
and
that
Photon or Spectrum and stuff. It's like these shows are expanding, as you said, like expanding what we have, and people are just like, no, I don't care about that. What's this other thing we can get out of it?
And that's to me the beauty of that scene, right? That scene showed like, okay, hold on, this is a universe that's willing to write some very, very hardcore real stuff into its content and not be just happy-go-lucky. We're talking about real stuff now. It's building out a past narrative of the MCU. It's building out these government agencies as being highly consistent through what we've seen through the MCU. It's writing these things as these are the heroes that are protecting the people that want to do this instead. And it's like, it's a crazy level of intricacy that's being written. And there's seeds sown for the future with Patriot, other Young Avengers, other Young Avengers projects that we know about.
Right.
Like Miss Marvel coming in, Kate Bishop coming in, all this kind of stuff. They're building that out. Yeah, Ironheart's coming. It's just like all of these things are coming. Why are people talking about this and what it could be instead of this month? I get that was fun for a little bit. Ooh, Reed Richards is going to do Fantastic Four. I'm like, no, they're already doing stuff here, man. This show is doing so much more stuff, and all you did with everyone, what they did with WandaVision was project. That was it. But this show is giving you stuff right off the bat.
Yeah, I think they both were, but it was, as I said, this show. I would always love just to watch it all at once. This show at least lends itself to week. WandaVision.
This is episodic. Yeah, it's great storytelling.
Yeah, WandaVision didn't work as week to week.
Agreed.
And it's why people really got swept up in their things. But anyway, so this is where I saw the second privilege check for Bucky when he goes like, I'm not that anymore. He's like, you can't just wake up and decide who you are. And they go, or maybe you can, but like take it from someone who was you were just a villain and you get to like walk freely right now. Like for most of your life you were the villain realistically. And then like I was the hero and I was jailed for 30 years while people experimented on me. I didn't have a say in what I was and what I wasn't. And like I thought that was great as well. And then again, he's not defensive about it. He's just like, and we already know because of dialogue later that he's like, I already know, man, like this guy's had such a hard time. I thought this would help you to meet him, but like I didn't bring him up before because his life is fucked and I didn't want to bother him.
And that's, I mean, it makes so much sense. Everything that goes on in that scene, it's like that scene's so well written, and that performance, man, that was one of those things that like just breaks you down, and you're like, oh my god, I'm tearing up here. This is the most really heartfelt delivery, and it's so good.
What's so interesting about that is he is a first superhero of sorts, and that actor Carl Lumbly, who also voiced the Martian Manhunter in the Justice, but like, he was the first black superhero I ever saw because he had a show called Mantis, and I was like, that's really good casting. That like, to watch that expand, like the first black superhero I saw on a like week to week basis was Mantis, played by this actor, and now he's playing someone who was a hero back in the day as well. And I was like, this is really well done, and I just like that actor because of Mantis. I don't even know if I watched that show now I'd think it was good, but it was just like, as a kid I was like, this is amazing. I'm so happy this is happening.
This is just such a crazy little thing.
So they go out into the street, they get meet up by the cops, and this I didn't find this as I've always actually thought about this as well as the way Sam deals with the cops and him being like, I'm not giving you shit. Like, leave me alone. We're just talking.
Mhm.
And you even have Bucky saying, just do it, just give it to him. And you think about all those times,
Yeah.
Facebook comments where people are like, well, they wouldn't have got killed if they didn't like if they just adhered. And it's like, but those cops came in being like, there's a loud black person. Let's go deal with it. Even though technically it was Bucky they were looking for.
Yeah.
They needed to be looking for him, and they went like, and they even to the point of, is he bothering you, sir? And he's like, do you know you like, no, he's not bothering me. Do you know who this is?
And it's like, and he even goes like, yeah, I know him. He's not bothering me. He says it himself. He's like, and like he says all this, and then more cops show up, and you're
Well,
just
those
like,
cops came up for Bucky. That's because those two were just like,
okay.
oh, it's Falcon, let's leave it alone. And then
Right.
other cops circle them, being like, we're actually like, you should be here for him.
I see. No, that scene was just like, if people refuse to look at the racial subtleties that are going on within every single scene, this scene puts it right in your face.
Yeah, it's the most on the nose. Like it's because it's what we know. Like it's what everyone sees is the relationship with black people and the cops.
Yeah,
so
because
everyone knows that. Everyone has seen videos like that where they think, oh, just comply, and it's like, but he literally did nothing. Like there's no reason for him to do anything. Like what do you need to see his ID for?
Yeah, and yeah, why are we doing stop and searches, our ID checks or whatever for just a random like a thing? The idea of like, okay, you see the whole scene play out. You see the whole reason why he's upset. It's a very understandable reason, and he's not out of hand or anything. It's like, why didn't
he's
you
not
tell
swinging
me
on anyone? He's just...
exactly. He's having a emotional reaction, but it's a controlled emotional reaction, and it is, he's every right to it. But you see the whole thing from beginning to end, and you're just like, why did the cops show up? If you can't understand, it's because of racial issues and racial profiling and all that kind of stuff. And even the like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you were this, like that kind of nonsense. That is all racism. If you can't see it within the subtleties of what John Walker's doing and all that kind of stuff, here's the scene, man. This show is like, right, nope, we're tackling this head on and we're kicking ass doing this. It's this scene was so well done.
Yeah,
everything about
I really liked it.
Back to back just broke me. It was brutal.
So then they go to the police station, or I think it's the police station where John Captain America has bailed Bucky out on the. He's like, you just give him a session now, and we can keep going because he
used his powers.
He used his powers. He used and like it's clear he's like, I just need them on my side to get this done. We're starting to see that he might not be as nice as we think. Even before his line at the end, it's this kind of like, let's just come on, just get they're gonna work for me. Let's just do this.
Yeah, work for me.
Why is he forcing the issue like
showing
this?
Up, I'm the new boss. I'm this.
Yes.
No, I didn't do any intel to get to where you guys got to. I just followed you guys. I'm piggybacking off your success. I have a support team behind me, resources, all this kind of stuff, yada yada yada. And you guys are a part of my team.
Yeah,
is the narrative that he has, and that is not okay.
Yeah, and so there's that stuff, and then we get into the therapy session, which was as fun as I thought. Like even them deciding like who loved right, but we get to that reveal of well, if you gave up the shield, that means that Steve was wrong about you, and if he's wrong about you, that means he can be wrong about me. So this is the point.
Redemption, and it's that is
and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That he needed Steve to be right about both of them.
Yeah,
because it doesn't make sense if he's only right about one of them.
Because the thing too is what you have to like. What I felt for Bucky's character when he said that is just like, you are pretty much losing one of the last friends you've ever had in the life you've ever had, and the last person that truly accepted and saw you as being not the Winter Soldier. You lost that because he deserved it. He needed to retire. He did his thing. He was selfish once. And if he was wrong, then no one's going to fundamentally believe him. Like that's what's going on in his mind, and
well, I mean, no, he won't believe him. Like I don't think he cares so much about what other people think of him. I think he's like the same way he's like, I'm not that anymore. It's more about him believing that he's not that, and he won't believe it if it's not if he thinks Steve was wrong. And I do think it's rightfully selfish of him to be like, I'm rooting for you in the sense that like it's not like, oh, like I can do it better than you. It is like, I know, like if he says you were good enough, that means something to me because he saw that I could be better than just the Winter Soldier. And so I need that all to be true.
Yeah, I get where he's been, like the idea of like, no, if this person was wrong about this, then like you kind of get where that's been like that. You're hanging on to that, like that's the last thing keeping you going. And all, like it's so important to him, because even to throw it back to when you see Bucky watching it on TV at his place, pay attention to the apartment. There's no furniture at all.
Right.
He is
sleeping on the ground.
He's sleeping on the ground. He's not committed to anything, building a life or whatever. That's the only thing keeping him going. He's trying to reach out. He makes that effort and absolutely can't do it. He just can't connect with people, right? He's in a very difficult position. And I like that.
I do feel like him sleeping on the ground is just a callback to Winter Soldier, where they're like, if you sleep on a bed, it feels like you're gonna sink in and it's a marshmallow. Yeah. Which is a common thing of veterans to say.
I agree. But the lack of furniture and all that kind of stuff is like, he doesn't want to be comfortable. This is the only thing going, and he needs that. And so the fact that he's driving it, you're right, very selfish. Very, very selfish.
But I'm not saying that to be like shame on him. I'm saying like it's a time where you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like that would be, if you're gonna be selfish, it should be for something like that, of like, I need to believe that I'm worthy of like being human.
I agree. There's a lot of nuance in what he's doing there, what he's saying, and all this kind of stuff, and his path along this whole episode, his privilege checks and all this kind of stuff. We're doing it well with Winter Soldier for sure.
So then they basically, again, Sam isn't willing to be as forthcoming. He just says, can't you just accept that like I did it because I thought it was right? And I don't even know if he does think it was right. I think it is just the imposter syndrome that made him be like, I'll give it up.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, because to me, I'm just like, it's very hard.
I should say I hope. I hope that he didn't actually think that was the right thing to do.
I genuinely can't tell in that scene whether or not he is telling us the truth or telling us whatever he needs to get out of that situation, because he's so uncomfortable. First and foremost, he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to be there. And he's like, listen, I don't even like this guy. Let's just do this. Move on. We'll never see each other. Cool. And like that to me is like,
I mean, they do like each other, but
they do. They like picking on each other for sure.
Yeah.
But the idea of
but they have to come to an understanding. That's why it hurt my feelings when he's like, we'll just take a long vacation and never see each other. I'm like, don't do that. Like, you guys are obviously, it's only because you've had to work together for so long, but you guys are friends.
Yeah, and they're both, I guess, realizing that for the first time too. But like, it's the idea of like, and I love what we're gonna get out of this. We're gonna get more quips. We're more like childish.
Yeah, I love when they're together. But yeah, they leave.
Like, what are you two doing? Stare off? Seriously? Like, that is just.
Well, before they even said that, the way he's like, "Oh, now we're nice and close. This is what you wanted, right? You're gonna love this, the longing gaze or whatever." He's like, "I will. I'll have fun with it." Yeah, yeah. They finally get out, and John and Lamar are kind of hanging out and like, cool, like, let's go. And he's like, it makes no sense for us to work with you. And this is why, when you were saying you didn't understand, I get that it's kind of muddy, but I feel like Falcon lays it out pretty cleanly. Like, you guys are the government. You have to use that protocol. We don't have to. We're free agents. Why would we work with you? Goodbye.
It makes no sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would just get in our way. We would have to go through too much red tape. It makes perfect sense.
And then that's when he kind of somewhat exposes himself by being like, just stay the hell out of my way or something.
Oh yeah, that's the real guy.
I should say John says that. John Captain America says, well, then stay out of my way. Which again, not really a Captain America feeling. It's just kind of
not at all.
He's
not at all.
Even, I mean, yeah, I just think that he is different, obviously, because he's a different human being.
Correct.
But we'll see, because It's not
Yeah.
guaranteed he's a bad person. Maybe that is just because Cap
No, it's
has said
guaranteed.
stuff like he said
Yeah.
stuff like that in, was it Endgame or was it, no, it was Infinity War when he told Thunderbolt Ross, he was like, I'm not here to ask for your help. I'm actually here to tell you stay out of my way, or if you are in my way, I'll fight you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you can understand where that Cap's
Mhm.
coming from. He's been on the run for 2 years.
Yeah.
He's been fighting missions, doing nothing, not like just scrapping through life and all that kind of stuff, getting by, doing probably what the Flag Smashers did, getting by from help from friends, so to speak, internationally.
And I feel like we spoke about the Flag Smashers and Power Broker. We don't really have to go.
Oh
into
yeah, we
that
definitely
anymore.
did. We don't have to talk about that.
So then the last thing is just Sam and Bucky being like, I guess we're gonna go see Zemo then. And then you see Zemo and it cuts to credits.
Yeah.
We have now officially talked longer than the episode has run for.
Excellent. I
A
knew we could
good
do that.
20 minutes longer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have anything else to add or if you want to wrap up on
I
that.
don't have anything else to add. This is just like the writing, the layers of intricacy here are just wildly amazing.
Yeah.
Wildly amazing here. So much better than WandaVision. So like
I don't know about that. I just think
no, from
that
like
it's-
the delivery, episodic acceptance.
I think yes, it definitely
am
works
accepting-
better week to
Yes.
week than WandaVision. Yes.
I'm celebrating this. I feel like each episode has a complete storyline wrapped up in it, as well as giving you more to speculate
Yeah,
about.
like
And
you
one thing I
end the
love,
first episode and you're like, all right, yeah, I want to see more. You end
Yeah.
this episode, you're like, oh, I definitely want to see how Zemo plays into this. Yeah, like
and then you're like, I want to see more of what John Walker's gonna do, because that power broker thing, I think they're gonna go super powered with power broker, and I think that's gonna be a very, very interesting thing. We'll see.
I am also very interested. We'll see. I think, yeah, we'll definitely just rate the show as a whole.
Oh
right?
yeah,
We don't have
yeah.
to-
I
we
don't want
have
to do
rate-
episode.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
For sure. But this
yeah,
is
we'll
a
rate the
win
show as a whole.
episode for sure.
I
This got
thoroughly
going.
enjoyed this episode. I thought
Yep.
it was great. And yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about episode 3, whatever that's called.
Yeah, we'll talk about the introduction of Zemo, potentially Emily Van Camp, Sharon.
Maybe I don't know. I don't watch any of the like promo stuff, so I don't ever.
Oh, I don't watch it either.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, in order to get to Zemo, they have to have a friend on the inside, right? That's my
She's
thought.
an enemy of the state. I don't think she's inside anything.
Is she still an enemy of the state?
He said that she was. He didn't make it. He didn't make it
He
seem
didn't-
like she had.
Yeah, he didn't clear the status of
And
that.
when we
but
see
yeah,
her,
that's
she's
what
all
we're-
hooded up and stuff in the trailers.
Ooh,
she's not
good point. Maybe
actually-
she is still enemy of the state.
Yeah, I don't think
She's a
that she's
flag
like.
smasher.
Well, I doubt that, but
I know. I'm just joking. I'm just throwing out wild and stupid shit. No, I don't think that at all. I think she's going to be a very, very interesting addition. Whether or not I do think we're going to see her next episode though, because
well, we'll find out.
I think we're getting a lot of wild curveballs in this that are not being addressed as well as they should be. Like Don Cheadle showing up in episode 1, having that dialogue. Like this show's given us a lot of
Mhm.
surprises,
Definitely.
and I don't think people are giving it as much credit to it as it deserves. This is
Yeah,
one.
it's hard because last week the discourse was pretty much all Justice League. So we'll see.
Rightfully so. I mean, yeah, in the sense where it's like, okay, that's a lot of content to consume, to go through with a fine lice comb and all that kind of stuff. We did. Should check that episode out, audience.
Definitely.
But yeah, we're gonna wrap
I'm
things
going
up.
to end on that. But before we do,
Yep.
I would like to say thank you very much for listening, everybody. We are on the That Shelf Podcast Network, other great podcasts such as Bad Game Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Animators with a Great City Song, and more. So please head on over there. If you'd like to hear older episodes of our podcast, you can go to tdferything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. We are on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Amazon Music, a whole bunch of things. So please head to those podcatchers, listen, rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.